again. Good morning. Hi, how you doing? Muted. Man, went through that whole dialogue and didn't even realize that I was muted. So we'll do this one more time. Shout out to the super chats that we got this morning. My man, Jermaine, bro, I'm tripping, bro. I promise I'm tripping, JP. So JP, you just no sound. Had to get the super chat through to me so you can hear me. Make sure, hey, hit the, if y'all don't mind, hit a 1 in the chat if you can hear me now. I hit the unmute button. You should be able to hear me now. I'll be honest with you, it's been a long weekend, a very long weekend, in addition to the fact that the Saints, and everybody said I'm good now, so cool. I'm good. All right, so I'm going to get back to the super chats in just a second. I want to go ahead and get to what, okay, cool, y'all can hear me. All right, so, you know, I said this early when I was muted. I wonder something, right? That was the name of the title song. I wonder if they know. You know, I seen a lot of discourse going on this past week about rivalries or whatever, right? And sometimes when you see certain people as a rival, you are going to rise to the occasion, right? Without question, all right? So my question is, I wonder, do they know? Because some of these younger guys, of course, like they hadn't been here. Some of these guys aren't from the Carolinas, you know, and stuff like that, right? So I wonder, do they know? I wonder, do they know this? Do they know this? This was after the last time that we were successful, right? That we had a playoff berth. And the Saints swept us 3 times, or they beat us 3 times, essentially a sweep of the season. And not only did the players get involved, and I mean, it was all kind of crazy stuff going on, right? Smoke machine, fog machines in the locker room, brooms in the locker room, stuff like that, right? And look, it's all in friendly competition. When you got your quarterback out there high stepping, you know, Superman and dabbing, all that kind of stuff, of course they're going to get their get back, right? But I wonder, do they know? Do y'all really know? You understand? Let me tell you the level of disrespect. That's Sean Payton leading the charge. That's Sean Payton with the broom. Look, sweep them up. 3-0 versus the Panthers this season. Right? So they felt good about that. They felt real good about it. Let me tell you something. When you play for specific teams, I don't care what anybody says. I don't know what the chat is saying right now. I'm just saying what I got to say, right? I don't care what nobody say. If you from North Carolina and you put on a Heels jersey, you already know immediately Duke is the ops. Immediately. It don't even need to be a question, right? There's just some places that you go, some jerseys that you put on. It don't matter where you are in the world. You just know when I go here and I play them, it's up. So to me, how in the world does a team come in unprepared? How does that even happen? We could see it ourselves, obviously. But to see this and to hear this from the team itself, from players, how does that happen? For this team, the Saints, the same team that last year dogged you in week 1 and was laughing about it. Derek Carr pointing at the scoreboard, talking to JC. Dogged you. How do you not show up and wake up for this one? This is I'm telling you, this is young people stuff, right? This is something that will get better as time goes along. I will bring in my co-host in just a moment. We're going to mute him for just a moment because I can hear too much. But the point is, man, is that you should, of any game that you wake up for, to me, like, look, the division is the division. Obviously, Tampa, I know people, like, look, the whole division is ops. Let's just keep it real, bro. You know what I'm saying? But there's 2 particular games that just mean more every single year. Atlanta, New Orleans. Every single year. And you took care of one of them. You got a chance to go on the road and do it again. Hey, we're going to get to see y'all again. You know what I'm saying? And look, sometimes with rookie quarterbacks, lightning in the bottle. We don't got no tape on you. We don't know what was going to happen, right? That's not an excuse for what we saw on our side, but the fact remains, right? But how in the world do you get to a point where these type of quotes come out? Y'all might not be able to see this, so I'll read it for you. Icky said that Carolina's lack of preparation was a factor in the 17-7 loss to the Saints today. I'm putting a longer quote than usual in here for context. What he said about the Panthers' practices this week, we just weren't locked into the small, I guess, details. You know, hold on, spoke about. Coach spoke about it throughout the week, and you can't get days back. If you have a tough day on Thursday, tough day on Friday, or whatever, you can always look forward, but you can't get that day back. No, you cannot. And look, for a young team that's learning how to win, for a young team that had a huge victory, for a young team that's favored for the first time in who knows how long, right? To go into your own home playing an inferior opponent when you see one win on the total for them for the year, I can understand why you would not show up prepared for the moment. But this team, of all teams, to not show up for these guys, trust me, there's guys on that side of the locker room. Like, look, let me tell you what's interesting about this if you don't think this is a rivalry, right? These guys have seen us as a rival far before many of those players that are in that locker room, even at this point right here, were there. Let me tell you who's not in that locker room. Will Smith ain't in that locker room. Sharper ain't in that locker room. Marcus Colston, I don't think was in that locker room at that time, right? Those are guys that always looked up and saw Carolina and was like, yeah, check that one off. Because little dude, or not little dude, but big dude, be over there dabbing and dancing and carrying on every time we play them. That stuff still permeates, right? When you walk into the Dean Dome as a Tar Heel, even if you didn't play against Christian Laettner, and you all these years later, you just remember what people feel about them. And shout out to my Duke fans. My man JJ, one of them, right? But it's that pompous attitude when you walk in. I'm sure they think the same thing about us. The Grant Hills, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, the Laettners, Boozers, all these different players, man, you walk into their spot, you like, man, no, it's up with y'all. Immediately. This shouldn't even be a question. There should be no question that of all games that you prepared for, this should be one of those ones. Sorry, had to rant this morning. Good morning. How y'all doing? Shout out to my man, Brad. I know he's patiently waiting. I don't know if you can hear me, Brad, but if you can, talk to the chat. Well, wasn't necessarily a question. And chat, let me know. I had some issues with my audio earlier. Let me know if y'all can hear Brad. Type a 1 in the chat if you can hear Brad. But so, Brad, I was just saying this. There was a quote from Ike Ekwonu. I'm going to read you this real quick, and you tell me, your thoughts on this, right? So, and it wasn't just him. It was more than just him. Ike Ekwonu said that Carolina's lack of preparation was a factor in the 17-7 loss to the Saints today. I'm putting a longer quote than usual in here for context. What he said about the Panthers' practices this past week, Ekwonu, we just weren't locked into the small details. And, a couple of guys spoke about it. Coach spoke about it throughout the week, and you can't get days back. If you have a tough day on Thursday, tough day on Friday, or whatever, you can always look forward, but you can't get that day back. So the preparation or lack thereof is going to add up. And unfortunately, that just cultivated in what we saw today. Well, Brad wasn't talking. I was talking. So can y'all hear Brad now? If y'all can hear Brad, let me know in the chat real quick. Type a 1 in the chat if you can hear Brad. They said we can't hear him. I swear it's not Raymond Felton, JF. All right. Brad, I may have to have you. I'm having some issues with this with the audio for the phone for whatever reason. I may have to just send you the link and have you just so if you go in my chat, hey y'all, type a 1. Brad, talk to me real quick. Just say your name, state where you're from. Okay. Yep, they said they still can't hear you, Brad. Okay, so having some system issues right now with the phone situation. Not really sure what that's about. Let me try one more thing. Brad, talk to me. Can you hear me? You can hear me. Okay, so we're having a system issue with the phone. Tell me if you can hear me, Brad. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat, Brad. You tap that link, and once you tap the link, just type in your information. Like go into the chat on the show. and tap in the link, and I'll just bring you in that way as opposed to this way. Having some system issues this morning. My apologies, y'all. But and then we'll be able to hear you. I know for sure because we had to do this the other day. So give me 1 second. I'm just gonna send Brad this link real quick, and let's see here. All right. Hey, Brad, I know you can hear me in the background. They can't hear me right now, but I want to. So our man Double O Kane, man, we was already talking to each other in the comments of my last video, but he just put a super chat in, so I'm gonna show you that in just a second because it's quite hilarious. All right, Brad. So I just put the link in the chat. So Brad, if you just hit that link. You'll see it says guest Ecamm Live. Hit that link, follow the instructions to fill out the information or whatever, and then I'll patch you in, and then we'll go from there. But in the meantime, shout out to my man Double O Kane. Double O Kane says, I'm sorry, but I'm so disappointed in BY9. I really wanted him to work out here in Carolina, but we've seen enough at this point. Bryce ain't the guy. I promise, guys, we're going to get to that. We're starting where we're starting right now, but we are going to get to that. In the meantime, while I'm waiting on Brad, I'm going to go through and just acknowledge some people that I see in the chat this morning that I didn't get a chance to, and reread some of the super chats that you guys can hear when I was muted. So shout out to Michael. Michael said, put in David Tepper at quarterback. Cannot be worse. Yes, that was kind of crazy. And then I think there was another one from Nicole. Yes, Nicole says, good morning, everyone. This one was rough. We're going to talk about it. Absolutely. All right. And shout out to Rare Gamer. Shout out to Tyree Ross, my man. A bunch of people said I was muted. KJ.20. Let's see who else was in here. Miss Douglas was in here. Shout out to Miss Rand. Let's see who else. Panther Blue, Cigar Music, Swan Man 76, and I think I'm caught up. D Tice, Ezel Rice. They like, dude, you are muted. Shout out to my man. I think Dylan is in the chat. Dylan from for Panther Fans Only. If you hadn't seen my interview that I went over and done with for Panther Fans Only, make sure to go to their channel, subscribe to their channel, because that was a lot of fun, and we talked a lot of junk, and none of it came true. But regardless, they're my mans. But anyway, all right, so back to it. So Panther Gal said maybe you should put David Moore back in. Hopefully we can win 2 more. Give me 1 second. I think Brad is trying to call me right now. What up, brother? Brad, can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me now? No, you have to hit that link. There's a link in the chat that says guest Ecamm. The link's not letting you join either? Yeah. All right, you know what? I'll tell you what. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make it old school. Can y'all hear Brad? Brad through the phone right now. Look, I got questions, Brad, and then, we'll get back to it. But anyway, all right, so I mentioned everything that I said about Icky. I know they'll be able to hear you through the microphone because I want to get your take on this. Your perspective on what I said about the preparation and what Icky had to say. And like I said, he wasn't the only one. I got another quote out there, too, that I'll read in just a second. But carry on.
Yeah. The issue is they look totally unprepared. When you take into account all the people that missed practice last week, the way they were trying to work Rico in, and then, you're moving Corbett, you get Cade Mays later in the week. Just the injuries, all those things, it's just too much for a young team like this to be prepared to play. I know it kind of, sounds like an excuse, but also the fact that it still resides on the coaches and it falls at their lap that they weren't able to get them prepared to where, they had such a dismal showing yesterday. So, I mean, it's definitely, if the players recognize it and then they're, letting fans know, letting them in on, the skinny what's going on, it's a problem that definitely needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. And like, so here's Jatavian Sanders. JT Sanders says that just comes down to execution, and it started in practice. Like some of the blocks we were missing, it happened in practice, so it showed up in the game. And it really just starts with execution from everybody, and it starts at the beginning of practice. It can't wait until Sunday to show up. I think this coming week we need to start and have a better practice, and we need to execute better in the run game and really every aspect of the game. Let me tell you what that reads to me. Too much Keegan Michael Key and me being too excited about the kind of public, acknowledgement that we're finally getting. Now, what's crazy to me is like for some of these guys, man, okay, yeah, we got guys on this team that went to small schools, but most of these guys went to places where it was popping. You know what I'm saying? Like where it was really like lit all the time. So to get this kind of recognition in a place like this, and then I'm not, of course, I can't say definitively that that's the reason, but it just feels like that. Like it just feels more like, you know, you didn't wake up for the occasion because you were just kind of feeling what you just did in Green Bay, right? And so things, you get the victory Monday, gave the Monday off, you know, last week. Dave Canales talked about that. It was the first one that they gave. And so, yeah, that was, look, it just felt like you were feeling yourself to me. Shout out to my man, Michael with the super chat. Let's see what you got here. Michael says, we don't need to watch any more files. I apparently watching films doesn't do too much. We just need to make every day about the basics. Every day about the basics. I agree. Couldn't agree more. Brad, I feel like I want you to speak to that point that I just made about the fact that a lot of these guys, you know, you got guys like, you know, Jatavion himself, Texas, Icky, NC State, Bryce, Alabama, so on and so forth. These guys have been to big schools. Like this isn't like new territory to, you know, to have kind of media focus on you. But do you think that the success that you had kind of hampered, you know, from last week and just how, because I mean, we got talked about a lot, you know, and some of it was in a condescending way. But the point is that we still became a, you know, national story because of going in and beating what many people think is a potential, you know, deep playoff team. Do you think any of that played a factor?
Well, it definitely seemed like it showed on the field. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like it definitely, you know, had the makings of a team that was smelling themselves a little bit, and they really looked past New Orleans yesterday. I mean, that's a thing that young teams do. And even though, you know, I mean, these guys play at these big schools and, you know, they have all this connection to such a huge entertainment product, you know, they still feel the jitters, they still have the nerves, and they're still growing. So that immaturity, you know, especially with a team who, you know, your best players, your leaders, haven't really played playoff games, haven't been in any kind of real wars outside of the regular season, it just kind of showed, you know, on its face, like exactly the fact that the game wasn't, you know, especially when they went up 7-0, it was kind of like everybody let off the gas, you know what I mean, including the coaches. Like, you know, so when you have your script of your first 20, 25 plays, everything looks good. And that's a continuing issue that kind of comes up when we discuss Canales is, you know, you have your few games like the Eagles game last year, the Atlanta game last year, you know what I'm saying? We're deep into the game. He's calling these succession of plays that are, you know, you're getting chunk yardage, you know what I'm saying? Like you're exposing the defense, you got them on their heels. And yesterday, it's, you know, kind of back to, you know, even the end of the Arizona game, where it just seemed like we couldn't get a play to get somebody open to expose any kind of matchups. You know what I mean? And so with a young team going through this kind of growing pains, especially a young coach, it's kind of par for the course.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, shout out to our dog, Double O Kane. Double O Kane with the super chat. Double O Kane says, by the way, we lost to the Patriots, Bills, and Saints. We don't need no days off after a win the rest of 2025. I mean, they gotta eat, bro. But nah, I feel you. And we got, you know, bye coming up after. Man, look, we got really one more chance to kind of cement ourselves as a second place in this division and still have a, I guess, outside looking in shot at a wild card berth. Because, man, after what I saw yesterday with the Rams and the 49ers, and we got both of them, one, you're going to have pissed off that we playing on Monday night, which I think is a winnable game personally. That LA game is going to be just as big a test, if not more, than the test we had against Green Bay, because that quarterback is different. And that quarterback is playing at an MVP level this year and likely will win it if Drake May doesn't. So this is going to be and it's all on the road. Atlanta, San Francisco, LA, all on the road. And if you're a team that, yes, you got a big win against the Packers, right? But your record is still 1-3 on the road for the season, right? So this is where you're really going to have to step up. But shout out to Double O Kane for the super chat. See here. All right, Brad. Okay. So, Brad, here we go. You got the link to work.
Yeah. It was being weird about some permission.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hang up here and then I'm going to add you elsewhere. Give me a second. All right. I'm going to add Brad in just a second. All right. Let's see here. So I'm going to have to go to this for a second. All right. And, well, we all over the place this morning. I ain't going to lie, y'all. We got a lot going on. This is how we was doing it Monday. But I'm going to assign Brad as guest number 2. Then we're going to get back to the... Brad, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, now we can get back to the show as normal. Okay, so what I mentioned, I'm going to go back to Double O'Kane Super Chat really quick because I don't know if you got a chance to hear what he had to say in the Super Chat. But let's re-put that up there. So he says, by the way, we lost to the Patriots, Bills, and Saints. We don't need no days off after a win the rest of 2025. Your thoughts to that, and then we'll kind of roll as normal into the show.
Well, that was the thing that Derek Brown talked about. You know what I'm saying? No victory Mondays. We don't need to celebrate like we've won something when we haven't. It's clearly a kind of, shout out to, the O's yesteryear of guys who were all about the work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was riding so high on the Packers win. I mean, maybe because you traveled, you deserve a day off, I guess, you know what I mean, as far as that's concerned. But you can't have these kind of lulls, especially in practice. Because, I mean, that was the thing yesterday. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the Saints had a great game plan for a team who is run heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But we still had a pretty good chunk of division there where, Bryce passed 25 times, Rico ran 18 times. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like we did still split it up and try to take advantage of the way they were. I mean, they were basically running a 5-3.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? 5 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and then Justin Reed was playing as the 3rd down linebacker. That when you're trying to run, a zone scheme, that's just too many players to block if anybody is worth their salt. So it's one of those things where it's like you try to fall back on the things you practice that week in preparation, and they had nothing to fall back on because they had such an awful week of practice.
That's a good point, but it's not okay. When you talk about the fallback in preparation, especially as it pertains to the offense, right? Because the defense, and we'll get to that too, because somebody in the chat was like, in my comments yesterday, and I don't know if you're here now, but they was like, man, J.C. Horn, he gave up 14 points and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, man, you know what? Personally, it's like, well, you'll go after Mike Jack. I personally don't hardly ever go after Mike Jack. Like if only in certain situations. Mike Jack dropped the interception. If J.C. Horn would have went for a one-hand interception and dropped it and that game been changed, then we would have went after J.C. Horn too, right? For that specific play. But for the by and large, I don't do that to Mike Jack because I feel like Mike Jack, plays his role as best as in his ability, if you will. And it doesn't impede our, winning. Look, this game was 10-7 for the longest time. I know J.C. Horn gave up, 2 touchdowns, but it was still a very winnable game if you get something out of your offense, right? So that's the point. And hey, shout out to my man JP, just became a member of the show.
Not this time.
Oops. Nah, we really mean it, JP. My bad. All right. My man JP just became a member of the show. Shout out to JP, one of my day ones, my day one moderator, man. Salute to him. All right. So, look, man, I know it's going to be trigger warning. I went live on Thursday night and, I just talked about this on X, man, and it looks awful, right? Because I went live and I was like, man, I really did go hard in the paint for Buddy. I went live Thursday night talking about Bryce. I went live Friday on FPFO talking about Bryce. And like, dang, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, just.
Oh,
my gosh. Flame out, man. Hey, man, 142 watching between 2 platforms. We only got 29 likes. Let's get that up, man. It's free. But anyway. So Bryce did look a little different yesterday. In the press conference after the fact. He was, a little upset. And I'm going to play this. I'm going to play a little bit of this audio just so we can hear him and, hear what he had to say as far as you can just look in his face. Like, and the context that I want out of this is this, man, because look, I'm not here to cop please. I know that might be what some of y'all think, but it's not. I promise you, today is not the day I'm a cop please. And if I do, Brad, hey, let me have it. Pause. right? This is not a cop plea day. This is just a context. This is a reprieve for, and maybe even an apology, because like I said, I went hard in the paint Thursday. But yeah, let's hear him out. Let me know if y'all can hear that. So I know it's a little choppy, and I apologize about that. But essentially, what he was saying, and he just, like I said, his demeanor looked different than it normally does. Oh, y'all can't hear it. Okay, I don't know what's going on with my system today, man. I'm on the verge of replacing this Mac computer that I have, because it is old, and I am pushing this thing to the limit. I can literally hear it coughing in the background when I try to do so many different things because of how I run my show. Like, this thing old as hell. Yeah, this. Yeah, but regardless, Bryce, his demeanor looked different. He looked frustrated. My question is, Brad, why? Was it frustration from the play or more than that? Because when we talk about preparation, right? And I'm not saying that, like, look, you can't come out and throw picks. The offense can't look like it looked. Things can't look good when they're scripted. And then we say, like, well, it was because of everybody else, right? No, this was a lot on you, right? But why do you think there was a little bit extra frustration than from before? Because usually this thing would be like, dang, man, we kind of let one slip, we got out of our way or whatever like that. I played horrible, blah, 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 whatever. But it just seemed a little bit more frustrated than normal. Like, I don't, honestly, and many of the Panther reporters were saying this when they were tweeting. I've never seen him act like this in the press conference. Like, so what do you say to that?
Well, I believe it starts with the play, man. Kid had several passes batted down yesterday. Also, it's got to get frustrating over time to never, ever hit the big play. We talked about yesterday, there was, on the play he hit T-Mac for like a 25-yard gain. There was also, in that same developing play, Xavier Legette had outrun the coverage, the corner and the safety who eventually made the tackle on, or, assisted in the tackle on T-Mac. He had his feet completely glued to the ground. So that's one of those ones, like I said, I liken back to the Cam days where, Ted Ginn would just outrun the coverage, and then you give him a chance over the top. Of course, it was always 40-60 if Ted Ginn was going to bring it down or not. But, the fact that, like, you're not even looking to take those chances. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the Ted pass, it was 25-yard gain. He was wide open. But, listening to them talk about, Demario Davis and how he studied film, and he was like, I'm older and I'm slower, but I know where to be in the right places.
Yeah.
It seemed like yesterday, every single time that there was a chance that they were going to make like a huge play, the Breesy, wrangle where he just grabbed Rico by the throat and drug him down, the entire sideline was wide open.
Mm-hmm.
The double screen where they came back to Rico, and Damian Lewis, misses the block on Davis. It's a 1-yard gain instead of you got two linemen downfield and it's only two defensive backs between Rico and the end zone. You know what I'm saying? That kind of frustration with just not being able to hit the big play is one thing. But then otherwise also, man, if you're the quarterback and it's such a blatant script from the defense and the opposing coaches, for you to have to be them, and then like you kind of turn in the performance he turned in yesterday, that's got to be defeating. It's got to be crushing. And you are searching for answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So I want to highlight something that Kibby's Willow said. And I think she had this maybe a little bit backwards, but she said, "I'm tired of this labeling of Bryce haters, Bryce sexuals. Majority of this fan base wants consistency and chemistry, what it takes to actually be a competitive team, and it's old with baby steps with a quarterback." Actually, I think that's the other way around. I think they call the Bryce supporters the Bryce sexuals, right? Because that's the kind of generation that we live in. It's like, if you can't support someone because, you're glazing, and if you don't like someone, you're a hater, right? And it's like, no, I think there's a balance to live in between, right? I've said this before, there is, as a fan, right? You pay money to go watch your team. You pay for, streaming services, cable, whatever it is, to watch your team. You're only beholden to greatness, right? When it comes to the personal, of these players, like seeing what we saw this past week with Marshawn Nealon, puts in perspective the amount of pressure that these guys really are under, despite what they may have going on in their personal lives. Because, a lot of people, myself included, do kind of say, I won't really say that I do this, but you see this. People stake their self-esteem into their sports franchises. You know what I'm saying? And so when you have that and you have a team that's been bad for a long time and then they give up so much to get you, I understand the level of pressure and a level of expectation that you would put on this guy or whoever else it is, right? It don't matter who it is, because it always flips. If it was somebody that you liked and you supported, not you specifically, a comment that I highlighted, but just in general, right? If it's somebody that you like and supported, like, yeah, you would feel a way if this person was struggling, right? And vice versa, you would feel a way, because I'd be lying to sit here and say that there aren't people that I look at, that we've drafted over time and be like, kind of side-eyeing when you see him struggling. It's like, especially like, okay, like I'll give you an example. CJ Henderson, we go get a guy that was a first-round pick for the Jaguars, and we give up draft capital to do it, right? And I guess I can sort of see the vision, even though it didn't really make a lot of sense considering in that 2020 draft, we had just drafted, 4 corners, Stanley Thomas Oliver, Troy Pride, Kenny Robinson, or of course he was a safety, and Sam Franklin, right? So you got DBs everywhere, right? And then you still give up draft capital to go get a guy that obviously there had to be an issue because he wasn't there long enough. A first round, I just want you to think about it. And it wasn't no low first round pick either. Like CJ Henderson was up in the teens, right? So you go give up draft capital. So when he starts struggling, you immediately start, if you're me, start side-eyeing and being like, well, man, look what we gave up to go get him, man. This is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it's fair. All is fair in this battle of love and war when it comes to, this quarterback. So it is 100% fair for you to feel a way about the play that you see on the field. The only thing that I'll say to that is this, and then Brad, I want to give you opportunity to speak, right? The history that we've seen as of late for quarterbacks not named Teddy Bridgewater or Matt Corral has just shown that for whatever reason, when these guys get a chance to go somewhere else, and I think I have, and I'm going to speak to this after Brad, you speak, these guys go other places and find success, and then we're still trying to figure out who's going to be our guy at center. So I'll deep dive a little bit to that more in just a few minutes. But Brad, I want you to speak to some of the stuff that I just mentioned. My apologies.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it really is getting to the point where it's up in the air. How long do you give these guys? You know what I mean? Baker was definitely, we had a fun time with the comments when we talked about Baker. But I mean, to be honest, his play warranted him being a, decoy defensive end for preparation for the next week. His play warranted Cleveland moving on from him.
At the
Same
time,
with Sam Darnold.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? At the time, Sam Darnold, even the kid, I mean, and some of those kids haven't came back, like the kid they drafted from BYU in New York. But I mean, how long do you give these guys nowadays? I mean, Darnold and Baker in these past couple years are just now showing that they're, not only competent NFL quarterbacks, but above average quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? Like, they are getting it done. I mean, Baker had 300 plus, 3 touchdowns, and he, was without a big part of his receiving core. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong, I mean, Sam's got some dudes to throw to, in Seattle. But even Geno Smith, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like 10 plus years of being absolute, garbage. And then all of a sudden, he's a competent quarterback. So it's so hard to judge that nowadays because these guys are showing you that if, with time, I mean, even look at Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
Next year or the year after a few, off seasons with Jim Harbaugh, like people, I mean, in the preseason, he looked a whole lot better, Trey Lance, than he did with San Francisco. I mean, and that's one of the things we talk about, or Dallas. You know what I mean? Like we always talk about, well, what would this guy look like if he was playing for Shanahan, in San Francisco? But I mean, we've seen how Trey Lance looked. He looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And now he looks a little more competent. So the thing with Bryce is those other guys, though, even though they were, they all do share that they're number one picks, like, Baker's got a rocket. You know what I'm saying? Sam's got a howitzer. They can throw those passes that are, deep. They can feed it through. I mean, I've seen big guys get the balls batted down just as much as short, players. But it's one of those things, like we're in that conundrum of, because we're coming up on year 3, you know what I'm saying? Like this is year 3, you usually got to do something. Yeah. And so my thing is going forward, what can we take away from this to even see if, like, you were suggesting Bryce be our holdover quarterback for the next quarterback.
Well, and what I mean? Just so I can cut in for a second, 2 things. Number one, I'm going to need you to put just a tad bit more respect on the name Sam Darnold when you say that one. Okay. And then after that, so just Darnold, just a little bit more, bro. All right. But after that, though, what you just said is what I've said all along. Like, okay, clearly, because this will be the next question that I ask as far as the offense is concerned. But clearly there is a discrepancy when it comes to Bryce and the play calling. Somebody asked in the chat, like, can Dave Canales coach a young quarterback? I mean, a small quarterback or a short quarterback. I don't think it's necessarily that. I do think that there is some about the preparation, but it just looks to me like I see people saying, like, and I'm going to have a special guest on, I believe Thursday, either Thursday or Friday, one or the other. It's either going to be a pre-recorded or a live, where we break down some of the film, because this guy's really, really good at what he does from a film perspective. And I want to ask, because I want to know, is this Dave Canales not dialing up the deep shot, or is this Bryce Young just being hesitant to take one? Because if you went out and drafted a 50-50 guy, why are we not just throwing the ball and giving him opportunities? You got 2 of them, really. If you want, I mean, be honest, like Xavier Legette, for all we may think about him, you're just not giving him opportunities. I told you yesterday, I watched this in real time. Bryce had protection. Bryce drops back. I don't have this in front of me. I don't want to play the film because I don't want to get flagged for it. But Bryce has got the protection, all that kind of stuff, right? Bryce drops back and steps up one hitch, but then goes underneath to Jatavian Sanders. The corner, if I'm not mistaken, was playing Sanders. So that means that you've got a one-on-one opportunity between XL on what looked like a shallow cross and a safety, right? I seen XL take that same play to the crib. Now, granted, it was just, the fan fest or whatever. But the point remains. It's like, that's the kind of stuff. Isn't that what you drafted him for? Like, the few times that you've seen Xavier Legette, break loose, it was usually on like a slant or a shallow cross or some kind of mesh route. Like, and he would just get, just outrun a safety or a linebacker, hit the boundary, and he was gone. You know what I'm saying? You're not even giving him a chance to do that. And to me, that's a problem, especially when you're touted as the point guard. But then the question is like, it really does you start to really ask yourself, is he really able to see this stuff? This is where the height stuff really starts to take place. Can he see these things? And maybe that's where the frustration is coming from, because the frustration is not as much frustration as much as it is realization, right? So my next question to you, Brad, is, do you think that play calling has anything to do with this? But before you answer that question, I am going to highlight this super chat that I just got from, I believe it is Michael, with another $5 super chat, spending the rent money up here today. Salute to you. It says Cam Newton was drafted in 2011, I think. It took him 4 years to hit the Super Bowl. Bryce is going on year 3. I do agree. I do agree. The difference is, though, is that by year 3, and we are kind of sort of seeing this, right? A little bit, right? So let me give some context. Cam Newton year 1, 6-10. But Cam Newton also threw for the rookie record in 4,000 plus passing yards and rushed for I don't know how many and had a bunch of rushing touchdowns, right? So it looked different, and he won rookie of the year. Cam Newton year 2 did regress a little bit, but you still improved your record to 7-9. Cam Newton year 3, yeah, we started off 1-3, but they didn't craft the bed after. And I said this last week. I compared, because it is a stark contrast, Michael. I compared the game that we played against Green Bay and the low-scoring game that it was, the low-scoring effort, to the San Francisco game in the same year, 2013, right? We go into Candlestick at the time. It was before Levi Stadium. We go into Candlestick. It's a 10-9 score was the final, but it was just a dogfight the whole game. And that's essentially what that was in Green Bay. It was a dogfight, right? And so, but the next game after that, I think Cam had a pretty big game. I don't have it in front of me. We can look it up at a later point in the show. Or Brad, you can look that up if you want to. But Cam had a much better game after that, right? Because it wasn't as fierce of an opponent. And I mean, let me just say this too. I know the Saints are having quarterback woes. The Saints have lost a lot of games by not really huge scores, right? Now, they did get smoked last week, but they've played some meaningful football. They still got some dudes that we're very familiar with over there. Brian Brzee from Clemson, Cam Jordan, you know what I'm saying? Some dudes on the defensive line. They still got, Alvin Kamara, right? And Tyler Shuck. Obviously, like I said, sometimes the rookie quarterback situation can be a trap. You throw a guy out there that nobody has tape on, and you don't know what tendencies to look for. And so, they start pushing the ball down the field, and, so is life, right? But the point is that when you're going back to the original point that I made, when you're playing an opponent, right, whether they're inferior or not, and there's someone that you're very familiar with, sometimes they know you better than you know yourself. Again, I'm going to go back to it for those who are just joining the chat. We got 201 people watching between 2 platforms, 51 likes. Make sure to smash the like button. Again, I do have to reiterate, this was a moment after a playoff game, the last time that we had success, right? We went to the playoffs in 2018 season, and the Saints beat us 3 times, and they thought so much about us, right? This rivalry that's been going on for so many years. They thought so much of us that their head coach even grabbed a broom and started sweeping, right? So if you're going to tell me that this isn't a rivalry and one that you should wake up for, I got another thing coming, right? But the point remains. Thank you for the super chat. Brad.
So, I mean, in the following week, they played the Falcons. They won 34-10, and Cam passed for a touchdown, 250 yards. I mean, he did have 2 turnovers that game. So, I mean, it was a better game, but that's the kind of apples and oranges. I don't really like to get into. I see in the chat, a lot of people saying comparing them. And I'm a big Cam guy, man. So that's not a comparison I'm kind of really willing to make.
Mm-hmm.
But also,
and real quick, hold on 1 second, real quick, Michael. Mm-hmm. The 7-8-1 season was after that. That year before, we went 12-4. 12-4. We started off 1-3, went 12-4 after the 7-9 year, then went 7-8-1. Continue, Brad.
But the fact that also you play that San Francisco team with 2 or 3 Hall of Famers on the defense. Mm-hmm. Other than Micah Parsons in Green Bay, I don't know really who you would say has the potential to be a Hall of Famer. But again, at the end of the day, their game plan was, we're going to run a 5-3 and we're going to make you beat us through the air. And you've seen some deep routes, but, it's one of those things. I mean, when you look at film, and they've been watching our film all year, they've got film of Bryce from last year, as long as, especially with, Canales as the play caller. Mm-hmm. And we do not do much for 20 plus, you know what I mean? Minus broken coverage. I mean, we've hit on a couple over the top things, but you think about the Jalen Coker Dallas touchdown last year, that was broken coverage. Mm-hmm. You think about, XL breaking a couple tackles, he's getting 20 plus. So, I mean, it's a good bet. I would think, with Brother Kool-Aid McKinstry, I mean, I think they would be as, excited about making those decisions, leave those guys out there on an island. But, I mean, I know that Canales understands what's going on as far as we've got to win our one-on-one matchups.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said at halftime. And then they come out and continue to lose those one-on-one matchups.
Yeah.
So the problem is, if the matchups are there, if the plays are being called and they're not executing, at what point do you put it on someone other than Canales? You know what I mean? Like, when do you put it on Bryce, Excel, Jatavion Sanders, and those guys, and even Ted? You know what I mean? It's just like, I've seen, like, so I get a hold of the all 22 every now and then. Like, you see that there are guys running wide open. You see there are guys running open downfield, but you also got to take into account the line. Like, we were, praising the line last week for the kind of time that they were giving Bryce to throw. Yesterday there was a lot more pressure, but even then, when teams are running blitz heavy schemes, you've got to have outs. So that kind of stuff, we talked about that yesterday. There's got to be more things to slow up the pass rush. There got to be more quick hitters. There got to be more screens.
Yeah.
And then you have to take a shot or two downfield, even if it ends up being nothing. Like, one of the big things, my thoughts are, listen, if this is your quarterback and y'all are evaluating this kid, you've got to dial up some stuff to see, what he can bring to the table downfield. If you don't know that. And so if you keep dialing up these comebacks, these, crossers, like, we don't know if the guy can hit for big plays downfield. And I get it. They're trying to win games.
Mm-hmm.
So, are they dialing things back because of Bryce?
Okay, so let me say this real quick, and first I'm gonna read the super chat from Mr. Go 30. Shout out to Mr. Go 30 with the super chat. He says this could easily be an 8-2 football team with better quarterback play, and in that case, we would be extremely excited about Canales right now. Okay, let me say this. I'm gonna go back to something Steve Smith mentioned during the Teteroa McMillan. We talked about this last week during the Teteroa McMillan evaluation, right? He talked a lot about possession guys, right? The reason that he didn't, and I think that Smitty sometimes has a hard time being able to communicate things without sounding extremely harsh. Like, if Smitty praises you, sometimes it's like the extreme either way. I'm gonna go overabundance with the praise, but I'm gonna dog you out with the critique, right? And so some of the things that he said about T-Mac kind of looked a little sideways, no lie. But I think ultimately where his heart was in the matter was just like, because he said as much, like, you don't really have a lot of speed on the field, right? For the exception of Jet Sweet Jimmy, who either, I don't know if he wasn't, thinking that he was going to get the ball yesterday, or if he just, if it was just a flub. Because, the way his arm was positioned, to me, it looked like he wasn't even expecting it, right? And then it ended up being a fumble. In what I believe, personally, was probably the biggest momentum shifter in the game. But we'll get to that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the point is, man, is like, when you see Andy Dalton came out and torched the Raiders last year, right? And Andy Dalton, for moments in the Cincinnati game, looked solid until it kind of got away from him. And Andy Dalton against the Falcons, before he threw a pick six at the end of the game that looked nuts, still looked serviceable, right? But this year, for whatever reason, it just looks different. And typically when you see a quarterback that's pump faking, we saw Baker do this, right? Now it's a whole different regime, so I don't want to act like it's a equivalent. But like, when guys start pump faking like crazy, would you agree or think to yourself that it's probably because of a lack of separation? Do you think that plays a factor into it?
Well, you got all kinds of reasons why they pump fake. A lot of times they'll pump fake to get a guy to, bite on something. Most of the time, my feeling is a quarterback is pump faking because they're trying to move a guy across the scheme. You know what I'm saying? When they're running the like a route in between or behind the zone, they're trying to get a guy to step up and commit to a receiver who they're not looking to throw the ball to. And then they can hit, behind that guy once he steps up.
Great point. Because it does make me wonder sometimes, like, when I saw that, when Andy Dalton played against the Bills, like, just seeing him kind of hold the ball, it's just like, man, is this a bigger problem than we're letting on? But regardless, look, I get it. You know, people I don't want to hear excuses. I totally understand that. Hey, detail, if don't nobody care why you here, you know, peace. I'll get you out of here so you can, you know, go tell somebody else then. But to the point, moving forward. So want to read another super chat that just came through. This is from let's see. Interesting. Okay. That's a very interesting super chat. Shout out to you for that. It says we need to go get Will Levis from the Titans and let Canales fix him. BY9 just don't have the arm talent. When we're gonna concede and to this and stop excusing, I guess stop making excuses, ran out of money for the super chat, but I totally understand what you're saying. No, I get it. Yeah, I mean it, you know, like you said, it is excuse driven to some degree. It is year 3. Yeah, I mean, depending on who you talk to in this chat, everybody's gonna have a difference of opinion. But I don't know about the Will Levis thing. I know I did kind of mention that, but that was kind of more in joke and in jest a few weeks ago. Brad, would you give Will Levis an opportunity?
Yeah, like the same kind of opportunity we gave Hendon Hooker. I mean, I would sign him, you know, put him on the practice squad, maybe move him up once, you know, the Titans have given up on him. But I wouldn't feel any kind of excitement signing Will Levis and bringing him in as our starter for a year.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, if he could come in and compete, learn, same thing, you know, that Trey Lance is doing right now. Yeah, I'd be cool with that. But him coming in and being like the guy, kind of like Daniel Jones is in Indy, yeah, I don't know about all that.
Interesting. Well, either way, man, salute. Appreciate you for the super chat. You know, never know. Might take a flyer on him. So I don't want to get this entire conversation to get hung up on Bryce because that's easy to do. Easy to dogpile because there was other things that, you know, we saw yesterday. Takeaways. Brad, I'll let you start this first, man. What were your let's start with number one, but I know you probably got 3 big takeaways, but start with your first big takeaway from this game and what we can build from or what you want to see different or how bad this could potentially get moving forward into next week.
Well, yeah, the first thing is, you know, we talked about it yesterday, is the Evero kind of loiter ball stuff. I was really excited in the first quarter because we were bringing blitzes and it was shaking the kid up. You know what I mean? I watched this summer in training camp, they had basically, you know, just different clips of Tyler Shuck in practice, and he was holding on to the ball for 6-7 seconds, running out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't let the ball go for, you know, anything. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And it was hilarious because the guys on the show were yelling at him, like, throw the ball, throw the ball. He did the same thing yesterday. I mean, he held the ball forever, but because we were only rushing 4, all he had to do was kind of step up in the pocket. And then, you know, these guys are professionals, but asking any kind of cornerback, linebacker, or safety to cover for 8 seconds, 7 seconds is asking them to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? Is you speed that up. Now, like I said, you know, apples and oranges, but, you know, one thing John Fox would do that. And of course, like I said, he had Mike Rucker and Chris Jenkins and Brinson Buckner and Julius Peppers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you do feel a lot better about rushing only 4. So, you know, I get it that, you know, Derek Brown's a difference maker. I get it that, you know, Scorton's coming on, you know, but send an extra backer. You know what I'm saying? Send Trayvon Morig. You know, they were doing to us like desperation type things where it was just like blitz, 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 blitz the run this 5-3. Why were we not doing the same thing? We really acted like, you know, I saw on a message board they were saying the Panthers acted like yesterday, like they were mad the Saints wouldn't just bend over and, you know, let them win. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the issues. You know what I'm saying? Like, take it to that rookie quarterback, make him uncomfortable, bring some pressure, and play some bump and run coverage. I mean, you're playing man anyway with this, you know, blanket coverage, and then you got your cornerbacks on an island trying to turn everything back in to make tackles and to stop the big plays. But we saw that, you know, if there's any kind of discrepancy in any kind of issue that causes, you know, J.C. Horn basically slipped and fell on two separate occasions. Both occasions they score touchdowns.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um,
And that
so
one, there was an argument of whether or not it was a push off on a
I
line.
mean, it was a definite push off, but it's also, you know, you're 6'1", 210 pounds, man. Like, don't let a little receiver push you to the ground. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
but in essence, though, you're asking these guys to do a lot. And I get it. I mean, they just paid the kid $100 million. And, he is one of the best cover corners in the NFL. So, I mean, I understand that. But while you're doing that, I mean, every time we brought pressure in the first quarter, we got home.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we didn't bring pressure throughout the game, the kid would buy time, step up in the pocket, run around, and then hit people in these broken coverages. If you're bringing the pressure, you're speeding it up, the kid doesn't have time to make those decisions.
Yeah.
So that's the first big one with me.
Yeah.
And we've been giving Evero some flowers. We've been shouting him out, but how are you going to tell me you've got a kind of game plan to stifle Jordan Love and that high-powered Packers offense, but you can't come up with something to shut down Tyler Shough?
Yeah.
And this is after they traded away their speedster this week for a fourth-round pick.
That's right. They traded away. Well, sometimes, man, like that addition or the subtraction, by addition is, gives more opportunities for, guys. And we've seen that. I mean, we've been a recipient of that on our end when Deontay was out of here, and vice versa or whatever, because of, what Jalen Coker was able to, kind of step up to the plate and do last year in the absence of Deontay. Well, after they got him out of here. And so, it happens on both ends. But you mentioned something when you talked about the pressure. There was a couple of different times, Trevin Wallace got home, with one. It's almost like, it's like the few times that they would, send the blitz. Now, there was one time, man, that they sent 8 and we got 0 pressure. That's a problem. Like, that's a huge problem, right? But there were a few times, especially when they sent it off the edge, especially, you got a new left tackle, right? Trevor Penning is gone. He got traded to the Chargers, I believe. So when they would send Trevor Morig, he got home a couple of times. Heck, one time they brought in Corey Thornton, to play the in kind of a dime situation, and he was, he blitzed or whatever. And so I think that you're trying to dial up the pressure. It's just not, to me, like you mentioned, it's not consistent. And that's what you want to see, like, especially for a young quarterback. Like, I'm not going to give you the kind of time, because we saw it, man. There was a few times where Tyler Shough had to get out and break containment. Now, when we rushed 4 and he broke contain, then he would kind of find his, tight end down the field and, either up the seam or somewhere, in the flat, and be able to, pick up a little bit of yak or whatever. But, like, there were a few times when we got pressure to him and, like, he would take off running and just sail one, right? Or there was one where he threw to Taysom Hill and it was kind of behind Taysom a little bit, and he ain't going to make that kind of catch, which, by the way, I got to say this real quick, man. I can't wait till this fool retire, or either we get something, like, because I get tired of seeing a guy that is a quarterback / running back. It seems like he always makes some kind of play against us every year, and it makes me sick to my stomach, right? But regardless, the point is,
like he always gets off, like him being the gadget guy he is.
Yes.
It's like he always gets off against us. Now, we hit him in the mouth a couple times yesterday, but still, to see him in there when, they were pushing the ball and holding it the last 8 minutes of the game was sickening.
Yeah, sickening. And so, but yeah, the more pressure you get, the better the opportunity. Now let's talk. Okay, so let's talk about the JC thing, because that was brought up. You mentioned that too when you said he slipped, 2 different times or whatever. To me, this just felt like, I don't think this is an anomaly of what, I think it's an anomaly. I don't think it's going to be a consistent of what you'll see from JC moving forward. And look, when you play cornerback long enough, it don't matter who you are, you're going to get burnt like once or twice. But in my opinion, even with what we saw happen, it still doesn't negate the fact that this team was still held to 10-7 for long enough for you to make a run. You know what I'm saying? So despite what happened with JC giving up touchdowns, and you could argue that second one wouldn't have been given up if your offense was putting, points on the board, right? Because you would have been putting them in much higher pressure situations. But do you think that this was just an anomaly or something that could be like a constant moving forward?
Oh yeah, I mean it definitely had a sun shining on the dog's ass element to it. I mean, because a couple of those, he like the one he throws to it, he threw to a lobby where he fell down. Like literally, you had an all pro corner fall down. You had a kid, pun intended, shucking it up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
On a third and long, and he comes down with it, he scores, and that's one of the things. Like I'm not trying to say that the Panthers defense lost the game or anything, but I'm just saying like one of the big keys I would like, because I've seen it, like I said, growing up watching Fox, all those different teams. When you play a rookie quarterback, yeah, like the kid is going to make some mistakes. We saw him,
Mm-hmm.
make the throw behind Taysom Hill. We saw him sell a couple passes to Olave in the first half. Like, yeah, he's going to make those mistakes, but from a nobody second round, third round, fourth round pick all the way to the greatest that ever done it, Tom Brady, pressure changes things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that desperation that we showed where we were walking players up and blitzing every down against Green Bay, we didn't show it this week. And I don't understand why. I mean, because teams have your tape. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, they held them to 17 points. But if you go back and look at the Saints this year, they've not been scoring any points.
Yeah.
They've been struggling. That's why
yeah.
they switched quarterbacks. That's why they put Rattler on the bench.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're looking for a spark, and we gave it to them. And that's on the defense, no matter how awful the offense played.
Good Lord. Shout out to the super chat to Roshan Hunter. Roshan Hunter says, Bryce and Jamarcus Russell have the exact same stats. Well, Roshan, you just happen to be on a channel that is a fact checker. So we're going to look and see for sure. So just while we're here, Marcus Russell stats. And let's see. So, because I'd be surprised if that's true, but we're going to find out. All right, so Jamarcus Russell's 3 seasons in Oakland. Season 1, he started 1 game and played in 4. 36 of 66, 54% completion percentage, 373 yards, 2 tuds, and 4 interceptions. In year 2, he started 15 games with a 5-10 record, 53% completion percentage, 13 tuds, and 8 interceptions. And then in 2009, 48% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. So I already know that this isn't true because last year Bryce finished the year with 15 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, I believe, in as many games. I'm not sure exactly how many he started, but we're going to find out in just a second because, like I said,
overall, it's 3 years, and in 3 years, and Bryce is not even done with year 3. He's already eclipsed his passing yards, his touchdowns, less interceptions, and completion percentage.
Yeah. And he started.
I'd like to see what that would be, but that's just one of those throw out. Like, I'm mad. I'm not happy with what my quarterback's doing, so I'm going to compare him to the worst or one of the worst quarterbacks we've ever seen.
Yes, and I totally understand because as I asked my man Pop the other day when he showed up in the chat, he said, he was like, man, from a comparison perspective. He talked about I asked him a question. I said, man, what is it going to take in your mind to justify what we gave up? Because I think that's a bigger part of this conversation that doesn't get said as much when you tear through all the emotion of everything, is that people are really, truly frustrated about the fact that we gave up so much to go up and get him, right? Now, to me, this would have happened whether it was him or Anthony or, whoever, Will or what's my man, CJ Stroud, whoever, right? Now, obviously, Stroud had a better rookie season, right? But it hasn't been, the same as what you saw that rookie year. But I guess you could justify it more because of him winning Rookie of the Year. And he's been to the playoffs twice, right? You could argue the team is better, but regardless, we just talking about the quarterback. But yeah, the Jamarcus Russell comparison, like you said, Brad, I feel like that's just a little bit more frustration because it's just not true. In 2023, Bryce threw for 11 touchdowns to 10, and he started in 16 games. Now he was 2-14. The next season he was 4-8, which is what I mentioned last year, and he had 2,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 9 picks. I thought it was not 6 or 9, but 9. And then this year so far, cement still wet. Started in 9 games, 61% completion percentage, so that's an improvement. 11 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, which could have been 8, by the way, if not for a roughing the passer call. But the point is that yeah, it's better, right? It's different. So I understand your frustrations, brother. I get it, and we appreciate your super chat, but yeah, nah, it ain't the same. Anyway, let's keep it moving. So,
Well, and my big thing with the Bryce play is my frustration. Like, I seen, someone in the chat that it's not how they're losing, or no, it's the way they're losing, not so much that they're just losing. Um, to me, like, you have all of these different players who are on their tiered contracts and who are on their tiered compensation levels. And then on top of that, you have fans and you have coaches. Coaches are trying to evaluate, fans are trying to find out who they're rooting for. Like, this is a time, like, I wouldn't feel comfortable buying any other jersey than maybe a Jimmy, not Jimmy, but a JC Horn, or like maybe a Derek Brown, because there's such an influx of, like, what do we have? I mean, that T-Mac could be one you could get too, but when you look at it over time, I mean, like, how are we evaluating these guys with this kind of substandard play? I mean, dude, what do you have with Excel? Everybody is so mad at the kid now for all of the stuff he did over all the money, all the accolades, as far as, what I'm saying, like, different interviews, what I'm saying, and the working out with the route god. Like, people are really frustrated with this kid, but how do you evaluate him with, 70, 80 yards passing? How do you evaluate? I mean, T-Mac's getting off, but then how do you evaluate, like you said, Jimmy? You know what I'm saying? How do you evaluate Jalen Coker? And so that's a big part of the frustration with me is when you're putting all these pieces together, how do you know what you got moving forward if you have these, continuous games where these guys, by now it should have been like a 340-yard game, man, like, where everybody's running wide open across the field. You seem like that would, have happened by now, but it hasn't.
yeah.
I mean, minus like the Atlanta game last year, we looked like we were running circles around them. But other than that, it's been that kind of season. It's been like that kind of 2 years. And so it's kind of like, where do you go from here? And that's the biggest part.
Yeah, I mean, Miss Rand, and shout out to Tri-State in the building. I appreciate you coming through, man. But Miss Rand said, Miss Douglas, excuse me, says we can't evaluate the receivers with Bryce at QB. We can't even evaluate Canales with Bryce at QB. That may all be right. That may all be 100% accurate. Because you could have more of a high-flying offense, a high-powered offense, but you just don't know. But I know this. I know for the here and now, you got to figure it out. You're going to have to, because look, unless it's just, if it looks like it did, last week, next week, then yeah, I fully expect that they probably, if they go back to Andy Dalton, that is the end. It is over, right? There is no coming back. That's the end of the Bryce Young experiment, right? I do think it's going to look better. I do. I think this is one of those moments where you lock in. But I also think too, man, that, and I've said this before, I love energy, man. I think that sometimes energy can be positive, and then energy can also be a motivator and a pusher and a, hey, let's get you moving forward. I love to see D Bates, come running off the sideline. It's like when things are going good, the energy is really high, right? But when things start to go bad, especially offensively, especially when you hear the quotes that you said, let's read this again for those who are just joining the show. We got 204 people watching between two platforms, 65 likes. If y'all don't mind, make sure to smash the like button. Thank you for joining the One Carolina Show. If you are not a member of the channel, consider becoming a member for $1.99 per month, and we'll give a shout out to the members before we end the show in just a few. But as I mentioned before, man, when I was talking about Jatavian Sanders and his quote, he said that just comes down to, Ike Ekwonu wasn't the only person that had something to say about the preparation, for this week. JT Sanders said the following to the Observer when asked about why the offense doesn't have an answer when the run game jams, right? So there was context to that, and I didn't read that earlier, so I'm glad that I said that, because this was specifically about the offense. He said that just comes down to execution, and it started in practice. Like some of the blocks that we were missing, it happened in practice, so it showed up in the game. And it really just starts with execution from everybody. And it starts at the beginning of practice. It can't wait until Sunday to show up. I think this coming week, we need to start and have a better practice, and we need to execute better in the run game and really every aspect of the game. Okay, so you talked about this earlier, Brad. You mentioned at the beginning, you said when it's scripted, right? This was one of my takeaways. When everything is scripted, the first drive, we've seen that this goes back to last year. What the first drive scripted, man, moving down the field, everything looks good. What's the counterpunch? When they start, start the body blows. You know what I'm saying? When the pitcher goes up, okay, I can't hit his changeup. I was able to hit the fastball. I was able to hit the curve, but when the changeup comes, I got no answer for it. Well, then, okay, DH, what you doing? We just saw that in the World Series. Man, it was literally a chess match down to the end in pitching and hitting. A guy who hadn't had a good series, a guy who really hadn't showed up the whole postseason, ends up winning you the game, right? And so you just don't have a lot of those counter punches. So the question is, okay, maybe you do, and maybe these guys just need to be more motivated, or maybe you don't, and they still not getting motivated. What do I mean by that? Man, I saw a clip yesterday of Mike Vrabel tearing into his guys on the sideline. I know that that's not Dave Canales' pedigree. I get it. I know it's not. I see it from Joe Gilbert, and I do think that it's very interesting that that's a group that just so happens. I want you to think about this for a second, right? Joe Gilbert's offensive line has had more combinations than any offensive line in the NFL, which I do think, by the way, is an issue. This is an ongoing issue. This is something that dates back to last year, right? Even with all this, money that we've paid out, and I get it, injuries take place, right? But all these different variations, and that's really the reason is because of injuries. But these guys still step up to the occasion. Each one of these guys is ranked within the top 15, at least from last week. I don't know about this week, in PFF ratings for what it's worth, right? That's Joe Gilbert's guys. Have you seen Joe Gilbert? Joe Gilbert is probably the only person on this team that will mother F you to death. Pause. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you need that. I've worked in dealerships where you've got sales managers that will literally rip a phone out of the wall and throw it across the dealership because of one lost deal. You know what I'm saying? And guess what happens? That salesperson either gets bounced or that salesperson understands, hey, I got to make sure I follow up. And I ain't talking about deals that were in-house that got lost. I'm talking about when you call and follow up with your customer that you hadn't talked to in a week and you find out they bought somewhere else. They would have bought from you, but they buy who they hear from. You see what I'm saying? And then that sales manager, instead of kind of, being soft about it and being like, okay, man, we'll get them next time. No, man. You letting my customers walk out the door. Are you kidding? I have gotten my early days in the business, bro, I'm talking about I've gotten murked behind that because I was one of those guys early in my career where it was just kind of like, I wasn't lazy, right? But I'm like, I didn't understand the importance of follow-up, right? So like, I'm not calling, I'm not picking up the phone or whatever. I'm like, whatever, I'll get to it. I'm looking at what's in front of me. You're like, man, well, what you gonna eat from? Your pipeline. When things slow down, when it's not tax season, how you gonna eat, right? You're gonna eat by following up with your customers. You are going to perform by being held accountable. So if the offense is struggling, like who's going over to the sideline like, guys, come on, y'all. Man, y'all see what we just did to Green Bay last week? Somebody step up. Somebody make a play. Somebody make a block. Jalen Coker made one and almost busted his knee up again. You know what I'm saying? To help Rico get into the end zone for a touchdown. Like, you got guys putting their body on the line. It just needs to be more accountability when things start slacking off. You saw it on the thumbnail, man. On the thumbnail, those next 3 drives that we had were absolutely awful. And we still had a chance to close out this game, even into the third quarter. We still had a chance to come back and make it happen, right? Turnover after turnover. Nobody's getting upset. Bryce going on the sideline throwing his helmet. No, I want somebody to go up to him and be like, dog, get it together. But nobody's doing that because, Starbucks generation. My bad, Brad. Carry on.
Well, no, I mean, but it's like I was telling you before, with the NFL's trying to do with these guys like a Mike McDaniel, you know what I'm saying? Like with Dave Canales, you know what I'm saying? Dirk Cutter when they fired Lovie Smith. I mean, these are offensive coordinators, man. When have you ever seen an offensive coordinator to be like a super fiery guy other than some of the guys who off the field were more fiery guys anyway, like a Sean Payton, like a Sean McVay. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like those are two of the guys that you see, you know, being fired up in your face type guys.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, I haven't seen it. You know what I'm saying? You don't you see it sometimes with Dayball, but that's, you know, kind of what you expect from someone like Dayball. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I mean, even with Steichen, man, I mean, whether they're up, whether they're down, you know, he's the same even keel type guy on the sideline. And so, I mean, are you asking him to be someone he's not? Because
Not necessarily. Okay, so I'm gonna speak to that in 1 second. Let me read the super chat, and I want you to finish your thought. Give me 1 second because they're just speaking to the same thing that I just spoke about. Rashawn Hunter says, "Can Bryce affect the wide receivers' belief in themselves?" That whole rant that I just went on probably is an emphatic no at this point, right? At least in real time, like in practice and stuff like that. Like, you know, off the field, it seems like, because you do see them have some, you know, some chemistry, but it seems like in real time, no. But appreciate the super chat. Go ahead, Brad. I'm sorry.
so yeah, I mean, it's like this is just not in this guy's DNA to do that kind of, you know, yelling on the sideline, flipping out. I feel like you do have your instances where he goes and talks to players. I feel like you have the, you know, abject follow up every single time they come off with a 3 and out. They don't get points. Is it those guys go to the sideline? They work with players.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody's up and down the field. But I think in essence, what he wants to do is build a player led team where you put everything out there, you make your calls, and these guys get each other up and these guys hold each other accountable. And like, you know, I personally believe like that's a thing where you get both of those from the coaches. I mean, both of those things going, and it's something that you can then rely on. Like you do want to have your Luke Kuechly's and your guys like that, you know, jump down a David Mayo's throat at practice because he's dogging it. Like I personally saw that. You know what I'm saying? You do have your Cam and your Josh Norman fights, but then with that exact same team, you also have your Rivera losing it in the locker room and cussing everybody till he almost passes out. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a mixture of both, but I mean, we have yet to see that side of Canales. And it's one of those things that would be more so needed. Like, you know, we go back to this a lot of the times, but, you know, a guy like Steve Wilkes, a, you know, dude that commands people, with Steve Wilkes, you would have that more so, but then you go back to if your offensive coordinator does super great under your defensive coach, someone's going to pluck them.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened twice to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Liam Cohen's a coach now at Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But I just feel like Canales needs to, if anything, the biggest thing to get players on your side, to get players working with you, to get players to buy into your scheme is, like you said, the follow-up and the attention to detail.
Period.
And that's supposed to be the big brain thing that we've all talked about with these guys like Mike McDaniel, Shane Steichen, Dave Canales. You know, they were supposed to pay attention to detail, and we went into this game without paying attention to the details.
You know what's crazy, Brad? When you talk about follow-up and attention to details, you remember when Chip Kelly was coaching the Philadelphia Eagles, and, you know, he had all these strict rules about eating and sleep and, you know, all this other kind of stuff that he was bringing from his time in Oregon, and people were like pushing back on it. Jeremy Maclin, LaShawn McCoy saying stuff publicly about it. You know, they all laughing about it. You know what's interesting about that team that never gets talked about? They were 10-6 2 years in a row. Even with all that stuff, all that infighting, all the super team, you know, crazy stuff that Vince Young was out there saying, they still won 10 games 2 years in a row. This accountability stuff works, right? It may not be the end all be all. You may not win a Lombardi because you do have to have some kind of team chemistry to get to that point, right? But the accountability factor, it works. And it's not that I don't think that these guys are being held accountable, because I really do. But when you talked about something earlier, and I'm going to make an emphatic statement right here before I read Jermaine's super chat, and I appreciate that. You said something. You said that Dave Canales wants us to be a more player-led team. if that's the case, then I'm going to make a very bold and emphatic statement. If Dave Canales wants us to be a player-led team, then yes, Bryce Young is not his quarterback, period. Because if you're going to have a player-led team, the CEO of this team, right? Everybody's got a hierarchy. You know, every company, any good company that's worth its salt that has grown has a hierarchy. You got the guy at the top that makes the hard decisions. That's Dave. Your CEO, your CFO, you know, the guys that's the HR directors, all these kind of things. And you know this, Brad, because of the business you're in, right? You can't make a decision about someone in your field and the people that you work with directly without getting 100% buy-in from the people above you. Because if you do, you'll be a customer. You see what I'm saying? So there is a hierarchy. But I need my guys that are at the top of that chain. Unfortunately, we talked about this with Sam. People talked about it, right? People talked about, man, Sam's not a vocal guy. I guarantee you, like, look, some people will show you little subtle hints with who they've become by what they change about themselves. Sam Darnold was clean cut coming into New York. You know what I'm saying? Just a smooth guy, nice California cool hair. Man, I done seen that red beard ever since the half point of the Carolina season when they start winning. And it ain't gone yet. I posted a meme of him with a black toboggan on, you know, and a Carhartt jacket. You know what I'm saying? Like, that meme was floating around like crazy. Hey, y'all got some black forces here? Yeah, give me 2 14s. He ain't changed yet. I'm not going back to that clean-cut guy. This is what, hey, look, I recognize who I am now versus who I was then. I hope he figures it out. Twist the hair up or something, man. Do something different. Get a fade. You know what I'm saying? Do something that a pattern disruption. You know what I'm saying? Like, something. Because if your CEO is not the leader of that, man, I told you, watching the Wrangler and his Cowboys, right? Man, that year with Barry Switzer, part of the yin and yang dynamic that was going on between Switzer and Troy Aikman was part of the reason that they were able to rally past being so pissed off about Jimmy Johnson no longer being their coach. Because Troy would literally be on the sidelines while Barry was pacifying Charles Haley after he put his helmet through the wall. Troy was on the sidelines yelling at people, talking about, man, this is absolutely unacceptable. Should that not have been happening yesterday? If you were upset in the press conference and you're showing your frustrations there, show it on the field, dog. You got people that'll back you up. Robert Hunt loves you. If you say something that's out of the way and somebody get pissed off, you got riders in the locker room. Ain't nobody gonna put their hands on you. But don't be pissed off and passive aggressive. Say what you feel. If this was more game plan stuff and stuff like that, say it. You ain't got to say it in the media, because that would make you look crazy. And that will, you know, point arrows in your direction unnecessarily. But on the sideline, feel free. And vice versa. Somebody need to be saying it to him. Yo, dog, you are far more talented than what we're seeing out here. Step up. Sorry. Let me read this.
I mean, definitely do something different. You know what I'm saying? The true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. The reason that Bryce was benched the first two games after the start of last season was because he wouldn't throw downfield. Like, it was because he would, you know, swing passes. The San Diego game was so hard to see, because you did have guys running open and you did have him just, you know, dropping, you know, passes off, checking down. Like, over time, defenses see enough film, and that's what it was yesterday. My thing is, I would have felt that interception that he threw when we were down 10-7, if he throws that interception trying to go over the top to Coker or Excel,
I'd have felt much better about him. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of trying to throw it on a comeback route to the sideline, I would have felt better. And to me, like I said, that's part of the next evaluation process, is you got to give him some shots downfield, and he's got to take them, and you got to be on him, and you got to, you know what I'm saying? Like, this being afraid, because, you know, in the Super Chat, he talked about, you know, can he elevate the belief of the receivers in themselves?
Yeah.
This kid still hasn't elevated, to me, the belief in himself.
Period. And look, Brad, you just said it. Even you talked about they got to dial up some more play calls down the field. No, F all that, man. Pause. Excuse my language. I'm going to say, forget all that. Go Willie Beeman. Your career here is almost over. You're on the brink, pal. You were on the brink. I'm going Willie. Yes. If I'm Bryce, I'm going
Yeah.
Willie Beeman. Man, coach, okay. If I'm smart enough at the line of scrimmage and I see something, check, boom, single high safety. I seen it a couple of times against Green Bay. Oh, I'm going to McMillan. I'm sitting there looking at the screen like, oh my God, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. Shut the haters up, bro. Please do it. Check down. Man, is you crazy? Your career is literally on the brink, bro. I ain't talking about like, look, Brad, cool. The Geno Smith story, the Sam Darnold story, the Baker Mayfield story. Let me give you a few other names. Deshaun Kaiser, Josh Freeman, Jamarcus Russell. Let's keep going. We can name after name. Kyle Allen. These are all guys that at some point, not take Jamarcus out of there, right? But these are all guys that had Teddy Bridgewater. These are guys that had success in the NFL to some degree. They went on winning streaks. Are any one of those guys starting right now? No, because what we're seeing right now is an anomaly. It is not the norm. It is an exception to the rule with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Geno Smith. It does not normally happen that way. When you get bounced and you go to the bench, that is usually where you stay until you come in the Nick Mullins fashion or the Sam Ponder fashion or the Josh, what's the kid's name? Josh something. He's been a backup quarterback for years, the black kid. Josh, I can't remember his last name.
Josh Freeman, yeah.
Yeah, but he's been everywhere. Not Freeman. Johnson. Johnson, I think his last name, right?
Johnson,
Josh Johnson, right? But that ends up becoming your career. And hey, if that's what you want to do, cool, you made it. You know what I'm saying? You realized the dream. Because that's one thing that can't be lost. You made it, bro. You were the number one overall pick. You got where you wanted to get to, right? For your own personal goals. It may not work out how you truly wanted it to. But man, there ain't no way I'm not going to sell out. I know you don't want to go completely against the game plan, but look what Rico did. Rico walking up to Brad, is it? Yo, dog, I see what they're doing right here, man. Don't wait for them to do it. I live by a motto in everything that I've ever done in my life, Brad, and you know this about me, right? I am not highly educated. I barely made it out of high school. People be like, dog, where you graduate from college? I didn't go. But everything I've ever had, I got out the mud because I never asked for permission. I only asked for forgiveness. If I do something, if I ran a list of some of the things and some of the people I've been in front of in my life, y'all probably wouldn't believe it. You would think I was capping unless I showed you, right? But it's because I didn't care about what the results could be. I just kept working. And then things just kind of worked out. And I feel like that's been the case for him throughout his career as an anomaly. But now we get to the league and you finally made it. You're finally here. And it's like, now I'm going to hold back. No, man, because you can be out of here quick. Brad, I'm telling you, this could be over for him after this year. It really could. People could look at him as damaged good.
Year 3 is when you got to make the move.
Yeah.
Or at least, you know what I'm saying? Like you definitely go into overtime with waiting to see what happens in year 4.
I'm telling you. Shout out to my man. Go ahead.
But it's one of those things, though, dude. I mean, I feel like it's because of, the support and just like kind of the way, you like this kid, like these are things you're hoping he's going to do. And my thing is he's got, around 6-7 games to do it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because we want a player. If we do, let's just say, hypothetically, he want a player-led team. Certain guys, Baker Mayfield's not a big man of stature, but he commands that team. I remember seeing a clip of him, jumping down Emeka Egbuka's throat. You know what I'm saying? He's like, "Hey, Rook, you need to do this, this, and this."
Yeah, don't drop another one of my passes. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You have got to take command. And think about 2015. Like, Cam literally had to whoop Josh Norman's ass for Josh Norman to be on board with the program. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it has to be one of those things where you take over. And eventually, guys will support you. You know what I'm saying? But eventually, you will turn that knob to where it's like, hey, man, we're down 10 points or we're down 15. Is this guy do you feel like, because that's when they'll turn it in, you know what I'm saying? That's when they'll fold. And so the biggest point is, I understand where you're coming from, man, but as far as, a lot of the fan base, myself included, it's past that point of him just going rogue and him going, I do like the Willie Beeman reference, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, because he would actually have that leeway with a guy like Canales. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, like, Bryce has just got to play better, period. You know what I'm saying? He has got to hit wide open receivers when he's got time in the pocket. The pass to XL, that's got to be something where he can get two hands on it. A lot of people are saying, he should have did this, he should have did that. With the velocity and the way that ball was coming in, he could only get one hand up in time. That's just a miss. You've got to hit those passes. 35% and below was a struggle at Alabama with him throwing deep. That's something that is evident that it's showing up in his pro career. Now, minus all the point guard stuff, he's still continuing to miss guys deep. And you've got to, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, like the biggest thing they're doing, even Jordan Love until last week, is hitting guys over the top. When you get guys going deep, and like for me to say there's no speed on the field, did Xavier Legette not run a sub 4.4, sub 4.5?
Yeah.
I heard Greg Olson saying that T-Mac, he felt, was a little bit faster than Mike Evans.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Evans is a sub 4.4 guy. We've got speed on the field, but our quarterback is choosing, whether it's out of fear of not messing up, where it's trying to be perfect or whatever, we are not taking advantage or trying to go after those shots game in and game out, and teams are starting to game plan that way.
Yeah.
So we need him to do better.
Absolutely. We got 222 watching between 222 watching between two platforms, 75 likes. Make sure to smash that like button. Look, my man JP sent a $20 super chat, man. Big super chat. Says this is for JF's MacBook fund. Look, man. Hey, look. Nah, real spill. So I use an iMac that is it's an older version, right? And I'm seriously squeezing every grape I can out of this thing. And look, I don't ask y'all for money, man. If y'all, whatever y'all donate, I appreciate. I got my own bread. You know what I'm saying? I'm a hustler. So at some point soon, the whole studio is going to change up. This is just what I'm doing for this season. But if you want to donate to the channel, you can send money to the Cash App, $1 Carolina. It'd be much appreciated. But anyway, so another takeaway, Brad, I still, even despite all of this, man, let's get some positivity in here, right? Because we've been talking a lot of negativity, man. This will be my last takeaway, right? All is not lost, Brad. We 5-5, and the whole division lost except for the 1-8 team that beat us. So hey, look, Tampa 6-3. Man, you don't know what can happen, man. The beautiful thing about the NFL, like we just saw this yesterday. We beat the Dolphins, and we came back and beat the Dolphins, down 17-0, right? And they just got smacked. They smacked the Buffalo Bills. So it is a up and down league. Now, I'll say this. Buffalo, and the reason why I still don't ever really believe in them is because they're just one of those teams that leave a lot to be desired. And it's like that every year, right? But yet and still, that's another one of those guys. That's a division rival. It don't matter what their record is, and if you're playing down to the competition, that's fools on you. But that is a rivalry within that division. Them and the Patriots are a rivalry within that division. Their biggest rival these days, and it seems like what they built this team for, is to beat the Chiefs. But you still got to take care of business to get there, and you more than likely will, right? But the fact remains, we're 5-5 in the division. Tampa 6-3 in the division, and we still got some winnable games. I'll pull up the schedule. There's still some extremely winnable games in this for this season. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say that's just one of the biggest gut punches of yesterday was we win yesterday, Tampa loses, we have our destiny in our own hands. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If we can beat Atlanta, then we can, turn around, get one of those games, a split with the NFC West. Mm-hmm. Then you do have the last week of Tampa twice, the last 3 weeks of Tampa twice, with a split with Seattle in the middle. You know what I mean? We had it in our hands, and then so it was like one of those things where it's like, just like yesterday, where the ball kept bouncing. I mean, we got a I told my boy Pat, I was like, we were supposed to win yesterday for the simple fact of when's the last time you seen someone block a kick and then
And
touch
you
it
get the
and
ball
then
back. Yeah.
the kicking team getting the
Yeah.
ball back? That was
Yep.
we were supposed to win just so they could talk about that on Sports Center.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And be like, man, what is I didn't know about this rule. Just like the tuck rule. I mean, we were given several chances yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, to me, parallel to the end of the season and the division and possibly making the wild card berth is we've made it super hard on ourselves and we're still getting, these small tokens of, you know what I'm saying, reprieve where Tampa ended up losing yesterday to the same team we lost to from the AFC West, AFC North.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or AFC East, sorry. You used to call it the AFC least. So, I mean, like, we are still in play. Chuba Hubbard said, we know what we're building. We know we're better than this. So, I mean, you still haven't lost the locker room. You still haven't lost the players. They're still playing for something. So, as far as that's concerned, yeah, that is a positive you could take from it. The fact that, like, we still can make some noise. We can still win the division pretty much. But that's a lot of hopium, not copium. You know what I mean?
No doubt. And look, I mean, I got the schedule pulled up. We got to go into Mercedes next. I made a mistake when I spoke earlier, saying that we got LA on the road. We got LA at home, right? November 30th, right after Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much. Monday Night Football. That team last night, they scored a lot of points, but I still think that's a winnable game. Somebody had mentioned something in the chat when we were talking about takeaways. I mentioned this guy earlier. Not sure if you heard it. Nick Scorton, man. Nick Scorton is playing out of his mind. Nick Scorton is developing. Nick Scorton got a sack. Nick Scorton is going to learn how to do things because there was one play. Like, look, there was so much they left on the field, and maybe this was part of their frustration, right? We talk about playing down to competition. This is the first time, you're 0-11 in games that you're favored since whenever, right? For however long that run is, right? Maybe they shouldn't favor us. We ain't gonna win another game. How about that? Let's just go ahead and say that out here. All these games that's on the schedule, we gonna lose. Maybe y'all get pissed off enough and come out and bust some heads when we say that. But yeah, Nick, there was one play where bent the corner, had the sack, missed the sack, didn't close, and it turned out to be a huge gain, I think, on the third down that converted, right? That's going to get better because he ended up having a big sack on the fourth down that flipped the field, right? So we left a lot on the field. I'll just say that. So Atlanta, man, you talk about a momentum boost. Go sweep Atlanta and beat them in Mercedes like you did last year at the end of the year. Go do that again this year, right? That's going to be a huge boost. These play calls that you've seen last year, the offensive line looks similar, right? Minus Austin Corbett being here. What happened to those gutsy play calls like what you saw with Tommy Tremble when Rice turned around and threw his hands up, knowing that the pass was, made and it was a touchdown? I want to see stuff like that. You talked about, not having answers to blitzes, screens. You know what I'm saying? Like, why does Jimmy Horn just get relegated to jet sweeps or the occasional, corner route on a fourth down? Why is he not given opportunity on screens? There was one yesterday. You talked about Brzee caught a Rico Dowdle. He might have took off. You know what I'm saying? You mentioned that because it was a lot of people in front of him, man. If Brzee wouldn't have made that tackle, Rico might have scored right there, because it was open field. But I would just love to see some opportunities for, just some more schematic things. And let me ask you, this is actually going to be my last takeaway, Brad. Let me ask you this. Do you think there's a conversation that's had at the end of this year? You and I talked about this last night. Yes. Are there guys out there that, call their own plays and their head coaches at the same time? Absolutely. But a lot of those guys that we mentioned were coordinators for a long time. A lot of those guys are, anomalies like an Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, whoever else. But some of these guys have coordinators. Some of these great guys have had coordinators, right? Ron Rivera was a great defensive mind, great defensive coordinator. His defensive coordinator has been a coach for how many years up in Buffalo? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got guys that
8+.
Huh?
8+.
Yeah. So you got plenty of guys that have coordinators that they bring on. so that they do more things like hands-on approach, have those conversations. You can kind of, and you can even like, you don't necessarily have to be calling the plays to be a part of the game plan and be taking care of business as far as the offense is concerned. You still have huge autonomy over the offense, and you can always take it back if you need to, right? But I don't know. It is interesting to me that the person that Rico went to about that play call change, he said his name. It was Brad Isaac, right? And it makes you wonder in the offseason, because I don't think they'll change that right now, and I don't think you should at this point, right? Not when you've been winning games, not when you just maybe crap the bed against the Saints. But do you think in the offseason they may go to, like Dan goes to him, has a conversation, hey, man, I think you should really delegate this task, because there's other stuff that I feel like may need more attention that doesn't get the attention to detail. And you having to, because I mean, think about this. When you mentioned earlier, you said that we didn't really have a lot of answers to the blitz, right? Is that partly because, and I'm only asking this because we're not in an NFL locker room, but I wonder if that's because, speculate, I guess you should say. We can speculate that that's because you don't really have a lot of time to dedicate to everything that you need to do as far as like, all the coach stuff, right? There's a ton of different things that the coach has to do, meetings with the staff and, finding out, what this person's going to do here, or, some kind of variable will pop up about, scheduling or transportation or anything like that. Those are all things that you're going to be a part of, right? You have operations managers, sure, but you're going to be a part of that stuff as well with your staff, especially with the coaching staff. If you're calling the plays, how much time do you really have to dedicate to like the really nuances of like, man, you see that right there? Look at what Tyler Shuck did in this game in college, what he could possibly do in this offense here in the NFL, because we don't have a lot of tape on him. But what if he did this? How would we counter that? What if Alvin Kamara starts running? What if they go play action here and we do this? Or, if, from our perspective on offense, man, what if we surprise them with this? What if we go play action and just take a shot right out the gate? Tell Bryce, you know what? We don't care if you throw a pick, right? It's obviously we care. So, let's not say that, but let's not go that far. But we want to surprise them with something, the same thing they did to us last year. Remember when, who was it? The same guy that they just shipped away. You know what I'm saying? Big shot from Derek Carr down the field, bust the game wide open right away, right? That's one of those haymakers to the mouth that'll daze you, that you have a little bit struggled like coming back from. Because I haven't even showed you what I can do in the run game. And we haven't done this all year. What if we try that? What would happen? Even if they do blitz. Let's just try it. Let's give them a 12 personnel look where it looks like we're getting ready to power run, right? But then we just go deep and let Tet jump between a safety and a corner and just see what happens. Why not? How much time do you have to dedicate to those small kind of things if you got everything else going along and you still got to call plays?
Well, to that soliloquy, dear brother, I give you an emphatic no. The thing about like not really knowing certain things about this whole process, I mean, like never been in an NFL locker room, but you've got to understand, even though he's, young, clean cut, whatever, family man, Dave Canales has a huge ego. If he didn't, he wouldn't have got to this point.
That's a fact.
He is not going to surrender play calling, especially when you look at kind of how stifled and how much we've struggled with our offense in preseason with Brad Isaac making the calls. I feel like he's a good, cog in the, machinations of the whole operation. But like for him to be the lead guy out front calling the plays, maybe down the line they might do something like that, but as far as next year, until Canales either turns this around with Bryce Young at the helm or gets his quarterback, it's going to be him with his fingerprints all over everything. And you can see it wearing on him. We see the bags in his eyes, but even like when Herm Edwards was coaching, I mean, like we've seen how old he was. Tony Dungy, same way. These 60-plus-year-old men were still in the office at 4:30 every day.
Mm-hmm.
These men were still there to work out from 4:30 to 5:30, eat some breakfast, look over film. Their coaches get there at 7. Players arrive at 8. They go home after 6, 7 o'clock, and they're back there the next day to do it. Like they find the time to address these issues. And that's just what it's going to be going forward. I mean, what we're going, like I said, to eventually have to do is this is going to come down to the evaluation of what we have behind and under center. Because we've added way too much, man. I mean, we've added 2 first-round wide receivers. Like I said, some people aren't big on Excel. Still, we allotted picks there. And the big thing about, like, because I'm over the trade. I mean, we're past that now. Every now and then seeing DJ Moore do his things, it does kind of bring it up. But, I mean, if you think about all that we traded away and everything that's happened, everyone has got to the point where they're past that a year, and then all those picks have been made and everyone is moving on. Mm-hmm. And we have added we've added the past 2 receivers. We drafted the kid 2 tight ends. We have the highest, offensive line salary in the entire league at some point. And people are still saying what needs to happen for Bryce to succeed. At what point is it going to be, this is the last straw, this is what we're doing, we need to move on? That's the questions I would be alluding to that are going to happen this offseason. Because like I said, I mean, after year 3, you've got to pay the quarterback, or you've got to go in year 4 with everything up in the air.
Yeah. Well, I think we're there. I think we're at that point. That's why I went on my rant earlier. I'm not going to get as passionate because I don't want to have a stroke. But, my rant earlier when I made the Willie Beeman reference, man, Willie Beeman started going off script, and Coach Pacino, I forgot his name, the coach, the actual name but yeah, I mean, he, looking at him crazy in the beginning, but realized, like, when they had that conversation, at his house, he like, hey man, I'm looking out for me. I got to, and
right.
If you're Bryce Young, like I said, you've got the anomaly stuff going on. And hey, don't get me wrong. Here's another thing. The NFL is a copycat league, right? So whatever you see one place happening, you can see someplace else happening. It is not good for you if you're 5'10" and Kyler Murray is struggling. It is not good for you if you're 5'10" and you just saw Russell Wilson lose a game in New York. It does not look good for you, right? Because other people will look at that and be like, you know what? Look, what happened with the running backs, Brad? You see now that their running back is extremely valuable. Look at what Jonathan Taylor's doing in Indianapolis right now, right? We drafted Jonathan Brooks. So it's not like the position was ever, a non-existent, a not an important thing. But we did have a stretch of time when people felt like, you know what, I can draft a running back in the 7th, 8th or the 7th round, or, a free agent or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And do that and be just fine, right? And the running backs that were taken really high, like Zeke Elliott kind of broke that, for a little while, and then people went back to it, and then you had, Saquon, and then people went back to it, and then you had Ashton, and people, probably going to try to go back to it. But the point is that the league is cyclical. So we could get to a point where you see so much because of the optics of what it looks like to see a smaller quarterback, and he's struggling. Some of these other guys out here, like, Nuss, who might have went higher in the draft because he's only 6'1", or I think Mateer is another guy who's, kind of shorter guy, whatever. These guys may get looked at sideways because it's like, yo, look at the last tape that we've seen of the last 3 quarterbacks that weren't like prototypical size, 6'3" and above. It's not been great. So right. As far as your career is concerned, why not sell out? Because you're at a point right now where it's like, yo, if it don't work here, bro, you might be stuck, period. Not just like going to, because yeah, you're going to get a chance. Somebody going to take a chance on him because there's too many people that see, certain qualities about him, even if we don't want to acknowledge it, even if, the small things that, no pun intended, that we see that could, you might be able to find a spark in, and somebody want to, like, look, Dave Canales, part of what got him the job, because this is important too, when you list on your resume, things that you've done, give me some of your highlights and skills. Oh, I turned Baker Mayfield around. Even if you weren't fully responsible for that, under your tutelage, he started becoming what he's become now. That's on your resume, and it never leaves, right? So you get a job based on maybe just that alone. Somebody's going to take him on and try to do that same thing possibly, right? So I don't think it's over for him in the league. I saw DJ Uiagalelei on the sideline last night. It ain't over for Bryce Young, right? He's going to get an opportunity. But it ain't going to come easy. It's going to come out the mud.
I did see him on the sideline. I was like, man, come on.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, but, and that also can be attributed to like just league-wide, subpar quarterback play. I mean, And also, college. I mean, in college nowadays, man, they're not making NFL quarterbacks anymore. Like they are preparing them to run their system for how many every years they've got them on these, Merc contracts, and they go from there. You know what I'm saying? Like you hope that the kid's got the base to where then you can take him and learn him how to speed things up and make NFL throws.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, you got a lot of guys running zone read. You got a lot of guys making one read and throw. And so over the past, like, I mean, I would say since like Dak Prescott, Andrew Luck and those drafts, it really was like a 10-year drop off in, number one quarterback selections and guys that have come into the league. And so you do have this chasm of teams that need like this, or a chasm of like this quarterback drafting where you're actually getting something from these number one, number two, number 5 picks. And the league needs these guys. So, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that Tampa Bay had absolutely, nothing once Tom Brady retired, would have Baker have gotten a start there? You know what I'm saying? Like they had drafted Kyle Trask out of Florida in the second round. He's already been cut. You know what I'm saying? They've already moved on from him and added a different backup. You know what I'm saying? Like these teams are moving on, but for guys that may have the tools that they may feel like they can get something out of, yeah, they'll definitely throw a flyer.
And that's the thing you got to be concerned with. You just said it. And I'm gonna end this here, man, because I gotta jump off here. But you mentioned it, man. You talked about drafting Kyle Trask, and then you got Baker Mayfield because he didn't work out in Carolina and had one showing in L.A. and that looked good for you. But boy, I'm gonna tell you, one of the scariest things to me, right, is, man, if he does get bounced, because look, people don't want to hear this, but there's truth to this. Once upon a time, Peyton Manning struggled in year 3. Peyton Manning kind of regressed in year 3, but obviously you had year 2 to kind of hang on, and there was a projection of what he was going to eventually turn into based on what you had saw. And not for nothing, for a short time last year, you did see that Bryce could, possibly turn it around and become, something really great. But if you make that decision, man, boy, you better be right. Just like, when I look at, Clemson football, and, of course, where I'm at here in the 864, the local radio guys, they dog, Dabo Swinney. But I'm like, man, if you run him off, you better be right. You better hope you get the Kalen DeBoer, and he struggles early and then, figures it out and has Alabama in national championship contention. Because if you don't and you get it wrong, you could be set back for a long, long time, right? And I've said, man, to put a cap on this, I have said that, look, somebody said it in the chat, we have paid back our dues for the trade as far as what we owed in picks and all that other kind of stuff, right? So the debt has been...
shout out to the chat.
Yeah, shout out to the chat. The debt has been paid. So there is nothing more that's owed. And if you don't have to pay him, cool. But I'll ask you, Brad, because my answer on this is simple. If your number 1 draft pick didn't work out for you, but he was the stabilizer for you to at least be... Yeah, you can't evaluate some of your offensive things, right? But he allowed you to not focus on that position so intently and drafting a Corral or drafting a Will, whatever his last name is, the kid that we drafted during the Cam years to be the next guy, Will
Greer.
Yeah, Will Greer, right? To me, there's a win in there. It's not an ultimate win because the ultimate win would be for him to be successful, right? But there is a win in there if he at least stabled the position enough to where you didn't have to focus on that for 3 years, maybe 4, right? And then you go find your guy. It stables the coaching staff. It stables, the GM. You are able to go evaluate other players. I mean, look, this draft, so far, draft looks pretty solid, right? Who knows what it looks like next year when Brooks gets back, and who knows what it looks like when Princely develops. So you didn't have to focus on the QB position, which is, yes, the hardest position to scout and to find and to evaluate, but you had at least enough of it in place to where you could be attractive to, say, a Matthew Stafford. I don't know who that is out there right now, right? But you could be one of those teams that a guy like a Stafford or a Brady or, whoever, would look at it and be like, or a quarterback that you draft could come into, and it's a much better place. Because ask yourself a real question. And this is where my support for Bryce, and yes, I still am a Bryce supporter. You can call me what you want. I don't care, right? Where I would tip the hat and say thank you is that you did come in to a situation that most people would agree was very difficult to overcome from day one, right? There was not an infrastructure in place to develop a quarterback. I don't care who it was, right? But, hey, you stayed the course. You didn't quit. A lot of people, hey, we've seen examples. Y'all was giving it in the chat. Somebody spent money to tell me that, Bryce was Jamarcus Russell, a guy who quit, who didn't watch film, So we hadn't gotten to that point yet. So, look, there's some, of all the stuff that we've said, there's, small positives to take from this, right? But, hey, on to Atlanta. Brad, any final words?
Yeah, like I said, again, shout out to the chat, because somebody was trying to say that they still had picks or whatever, and they spent it on the wide receiver second rounder this year. We do know some semblance of what we're talking about on here. But yeah, with this loss, I liken it to the years, when Roy Williams was coaching Carolina, and they would have a bad, inexplicable loss to a team that they should have beat, and the players would show up the next week, and the rims would be off the backboards, and he'd be like, all right, let's start practice. We need to seriously go nose to the grindstone this week, work on the little things, super be prepared. Because, you've got another, we shut him down the first game, but you've got a dynamic back in Bijan coming. And it's still, I feel like this is a team we should beat. We beat them 30-0 last time. Mm-hmm. So they need to make sure, practice hard this week, pay attention to the details, and get ready to keep ourselves, in second place and, gaining on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I love it, man. Hey, salute to my man, Brad. One of my best friends in the world and one of the greatest show hosts on the tube. Shout out to my moderator, Jermaine. Been at JP, been in the chat this entire time. Riding with us. I see some of my regular faithful. You changed, hold on, where's she at? You changed your name. It's hard for me to say this new name. Kibis Willow? You might have to, put abbreviations and stuff in the chat to tell me how to say that so I get it right. Because your name used to be something else. I can't remember what it was. But shout out to Red Gamer. Red Gamer been in the chat the entire time. My man Maul, I see Maul in here, bro. You just got here. Maul like, yep. I'm like, bro, we been up since 10, dog. We about to go. Where you been at, cuz? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, bro. What's up?
I like Dizzy Lizard Productions. He posted one earlier. He posted that Mike Singletary can't win with him, can't coach him.
Yeah,
can't do it. Every time that one, and I was gonna say that earlier, but just got lost in the sauce. But you know how I was feeling yesterday, man. Dennis Green.
Yeah,
they were exactly who
you thought they were. Yeah,
a rookie quarterback, struggling offense, and we let him off the hook.
Sure did. Let him off the hook. And I'm going to get to one more thing before we go. The next thing I want to say is just shouting out to the channel members. We had a new channel member, my mod JP, join the channel. All right. Shout out to Geraldine Cook, Nicole S., Richard Bowman, King Sun 1, C3 Doug, J Issue, Will _Robinson _43. Shout out to all the members that have joined. If you consider joining the channel for $1.99 a month, look forward to having you guys on. Tyree Ross, salute to you, man. Always a regular. And so I'm going to say the last word, man, here. So Brad just said it, man. They are who we thought they were. They are exactly who we thought they were. They came into our stadium with a broom. They came into our stadium with fog machines. They came into our stadium and swept us. Look, regardless of what you think, this is 100% still a rivalry. I know people in the chat were saying like, oh, rivalries are old. No. If you live anywhere near Raleigh, Durham, you know well, It don't matter who wearing the jersey. The rivalry is still real. So it is always and forever up with the New Orleans Saints. Next time, act like it. I'll see y'all next week.